I can't believe it. And what an episode it's going to be, Brett, because we get to talk about a movie that, well, let's be honest, we've been talking about it for years anyway. But now we get to actually talk about the movie itself. We've been talking about every scrap of information about it, but we get to talk about the Batman. It's like it's like a holiday week this week for
This
me,
is
yeah, right?
finally. It's been
Right?
so long.
It's been so long, and we both saw it last night, but not together. You, of
Not
course, chose to see it with some broad. I don't know,
yeah, you know.
Speaking of which, look what I got in the mail today. I
Oh
got your
yeah,
save the date. Right now, I'm holding up
that's
the save the
that's
date for Brett
that
and
is it.
Jesse. And let's see, October 1st, 20. I think I'm busy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you are
I can.
busy. You're
Yeah,
busy
I am
DJ.
busy. Yes, that's right. Because I'm gonna be DJing Brett and Jesse's wedding, and we're gonna have to come up with some really wacky, interesting stuff for your party. So I'm looking forward to that. And you can let
Absolutely.
Jesse know I'll be there. Okay. I love
Very
my
good.
save the
Very good.
date. Um, but yes, so I don't know. We probably shouldn't waste any more time. Should we just get right into it, Brett?
Let's just get right into it.
All right, so then let's get down to brass tacks. I'm going to ask you straightforward here. Did you like the Batman?
Yeah. Oh my God. I absolutely loved the movie.
Yeah.
It is by far. I mean, it's my number one Batman film. It checked
Wow, really?
It checked all the
Yeah.
boxes. It literally was like a checklist of
Mhm.
everything I ever wanted to see Batman do in a movie. He did in
Mhm.
this movie.
Yeah.
And that's just like the quick non-spoilery thoughts, but it's a tremendous accomplishment. I loved every aspect of it. I don't know if I have any complaints. It was really
Wow.
a tremendous feat. Bravo to Matt Reeves and cast. Wow.
And I'm just curious. See, last week we were talking about like the normies, the casuals, right? You did go with Jesse. You went with your lady. What did she think?
So yeah, so like normally like she's not doesn't go to the movies often anyway. Period. The end. But she like would not have ever gone on her own to see this. She went because of me, and I was like, I
Yeah.
want to go. Obviously, she knows how obsessed I've been with this movie. That said, 3 hour long movie. It's a long movie. It's something you got to really be invested in.
Mhm.
She was and this is someone who falls asleep every night watching TV, watching movies all the time.
Yeah.
She was a trooper. She made it through the whole movie, and at the end looked at me and went, "That was really good." So, and this is
Wow.
someone who she knows enough about Batman. She knows
Yeah.
the basics, and she had no trouble following anything. She
Mhm.
was really engaged, and she's also into like true crime stuff and a lot of those
Yeah.
crime documentaries and murder shows and stuff. So for
Yeah.
her, the whole actual like storyline and plot and like the mystery behind it was like really engaging for her. So,
Nice. All
yeah,
right. Well, that bodes well.
that
That bodes
bodes well
well.
if for someone who's like like a super casual
Yeah.
fan. I
And
wouldn't
it's
even know if
funny
you would
too.
call her casual. Less than that.
But it's funny too, because like last week, Matt Reeves was out making the rounds doing interviews, and something that he talked about was the test screenings, and about how one of his big concerns was like, are people going to be able to follow the plot and all that sort of stuff? And I gotta say, considering how many twists and turns and how much is going on, I feel like the movie did a real good job where it never lost me. I was able
Yeah.
to follow pretty much every step of the way. I was never confused. Did you feel that way too? Like you got it?
Yeah. I really was with it the whole time. I remember one like specific moment, and not it's not like a spoiler. I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
give it any detail, but there was like a couple of little like ancillary characters that were caught up in the mystery
Yeah.
that were like kind of like crooked cops. I could just say
Yeah.
that I know a couple of times Jesse looked over to me and was like, "Who is that again?" Because like they didn't
Oh,
really
yeah.
have much screen time. So that kind of got confusing, and it was throwing, definitely a lot of people at you. But like I said, for the
Yeah.
most part, I mean, it was pretty easy to follow and straightforward. And
Mhm.
you never got if you did get like off, beat for a second, you were very easily able to get back on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, see, I didn't see it with normies. I saw it with two fellow geeks who you happen to know very, very well.
You went with
You're
my old co-host.
Yeah, I went with your Play It Loudcast co-host. I went with Rob and Jeremy. And yeah, needless to say, the three of us were very, very pleased.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself, listen, I went in with expectations that were probably unreasonably high. I was even talking about it yesterday on my way there. I was on the phone with Joel, another friend of ours, and I was letting him know, like, I'm probably setting myself up for failure here. But honestly, with all the years of anticipation, with all the years of, what is this movie going to be, and following all the twists and turns, and I went into, and then reading all the reviews earlier this week, seeing that Rotten Tomatoes score, seeing IGN gave it a 10 out of 10, seeing all the people, hearing that Bill from Batman on Film was in love with it, which I'm going to get into him. I'm going to get into a conversation with him later on in this episode. I should mention, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I should mention that later on in this episode, we have a special treat. I bring on Batman on Film, but that's going to be later on when we get into the spoilers section. So, folks, for those of you who are listening now, don't worry. You can continue to remain here in a safe zone. We're going to be sticking with non-spoiler Batman stuff. We're going to get into some regular fanboy topics. And then after a proper warning, we're going to get into my conversation with Brother Bill. We're going to get into spoilers and theories and talk about the sequels and get a little more granular on this Batman flick. But for now, while we're in the non-spoiler zone, as high as my expectations were, this thing met them and perhaps even surpassed them.
Yeah.
So, and it's rare that I sit down for a 3-hour movie and then instantly dying to see it a second time when it's over.
Right.
So I think Reeves crushed it. I think there's lots of things that we could hone in on, but like, let's just talk about Robert Pattinson for a second, right?
Sure.
Because that was a casting that a lot of people were very, very anxious about. A lot of people thought, oh, this is just that kid from Twilight. He's going to be a sparkly vampire Batman. He's some teeny bopper idol. What are they doing? And no way. I think this dude, like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how quickly I bought him. Because the funny thing is, even in the trailers, I'm like, I'm loving the atmosphere and all this other stuff and the writing, but like something about seeing him in the suit, I was still not quite, but within moments of seeing him on screen, the way they introduce him when he comes out of the shadows and does the I am vengeance and the way it's set up and that detective noir voiceover where he's giving the grizzled talk about,
I love
it. I was instantly like, oh no, this is Batman. Like I was instantly like hooked. But what did you think of Battinson?
Yeah, I really, I'm always the one to give the benefit of the doubt. Even when they said Heath Ledger, everyone was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And then look how that turned out. And I was saying, I was like, you know what? He's gonna do something special, and he did. And then even when they did Ben Affleck, I was like, no, I really don't have any worries about that. I think he's gonna crush it. And this one, I definitely had maybe like a slight trepidation, but just from knowing in the past how like some of these have turned out, these inspired casting choices, I said I'm going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. And then I did a little research and I went and watched some of his more recent indie films.
Oh, you did?
Look at specifically, which I think Matt Reeves mentioned was an inspiration for thinking of Pattinson for the role, was a movie called Good Time.
Okay.
It was basically, nutshell, quick thing. He's kind of Robert Pattinson plays like this kind of like down and out, like I don't know if you're gonna call him like a thug. I don't even know if you call him that. He's just like an opera. He needs money. Let's just say he needs money. He has a special need. He has like a special needs brother, and it's just this movie that is filled with so much tension, and you get these glimpses there of the darkness, the sadness, the badness that we do get from him as Bruce Wayne and Batman in this film. So once I saw that, I was like, oh no, he's going to crush it. And he certainly knocked it out of the park. I really thought he was just such a tremendous force and presence as Batman. And make no mistake, he's Batman for like 95% of the movie.
Yeah. So we see him in the suit practically the whole time.
Yeah, which is like a total 180 from pretty much every other film, every other Batman film.
And what's funny though is, in terms of what I find so impressive about his acting, about his performance in this film, is that costume, because that can be very limiting as an actor. It could be very like, how do I do what I do when I have like a whole suit of armor on and a thing covering half my
Yeah.
face? Like, yeah, that could be a real obstacle to really conveying any kind of nuance, to really putting yourself, just, that can be a real obstacle. And I feel like Pattinson somehow, through his body language, through everything, he was able to give a very captivating performance despite having to wear this clunky sort of, it's not a natural thing for a person to wear or walk around in and have to be taken seriously in, like it's and the fact that he pulled it off, and like I said, it's the body language. Like there's moments there, like in the choreography when he's approaching some of these villains, the brutality, the swiftness and the smoothness and the violence with which he moves, like it conveyed so much. Like you could tell that his part of his preparation for this wasn't just, being a good actor, but also showing how to use his whole body to convey this character. You know what I mean? Because that's not easy to do when you have a cape and a cowl and all that stuff on.
Yeah, can we talk about just the incredible level of eye acting? And I should
Yeah.
say also not just him, Paul Dano as well as the
Mm-hmm.
Riddler. The
Mm-hmm.
eye, it sounds so silly, but the
The
eye
eye
acting in this
acting.
film was off the charts. And actually, this is going to sound even more goofy than eye acting, but Pattinson, this is going to sound really weird. I know it doesn't sound weird. His mouth acting, like, I don't know if that makes any sense,
Yeah,
but
I
like,
know what you mean.
just the mouth, like the way he would curl his lip or snarl his teeth, or like
Yeah.
there was so much just in that. And you owe that also to, like, Christian Bale had a very tight cowl that kind of
Yes.
came very over the face,
Mm-hmm.
very close to the mouth, where this has very much like the Earth One Volume One. I
Yeah.
mean, I actually checked as soon as I got home. I popped open my Earth One comics real quick just to really double check some of the inspiration, which was heavy. Like I had suggested that in the past, but having seen the movie, heavily inspired by Earth One, heavily inspired. So that's definitely a couple. There's only
Yeah.
3 volumes. You should get on that if you haven't read it.
Okay. All
But
right.
specifically the first one, because they do change the suit from volume 1 to volume 2. But in the
Okay.
first one, the cowl is literally like a 1-to-1 match to Pattinson's,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's very wide and open, and there's not like a thing covering the chin.
Yeah.
And yeah, it allows for even like the artist in the comic just to have him emote a lot more. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the way the eyes are, I mean, like literally like ripped
Yes.
off the page. His
And
eyes,
honestly,
I mean, you
yeah.
could see his eyes in other films, but I feel like for some reason, I don't know, like maybe they were a little bigger. Like in
Mm-hmm.
this, the eye holes.
Yeah. No, they
But
were, because you could really see the
you
black
could
makeup
really
even with
see
the
it.
cowl on. So there was
Yeah,
definitely, the eye holes were bigger, so you could have a greater emphasis on the
and
eye
it
acting.
worked to great effect.
Yeah. Yeah. You make me want to see like a poster that on the Batman says, "The eye acting is great." Brett
Yeah,
Miro, the Fanboy podcast.
yeah,
But no, like, listen, I'm with you on even the subtleties of his mouth movements. And I honestly think that that leather face that it has, because it's not even like a hard shell. A lot of the cowls are usually, they've been pretty solid up to
yeah.
now. And this one is the first one where, and at first it would seem weird to me. It almost looked like it was breathable, like leather. It was soft.
Right.
It wasn't a hard helmet. But I think that helped perhaps with why he seems so able to emote. And you could almost feel like you're looking at his face,
Right.
even though you're only seeing, you know what I mean? I feel like that leather thing kind of helps.
And that it was
Um,
detached from the actual torso, so he could move his head.
yeah, yeah. He could,
They did the high
go
neck
figure.
instead, and then you're able to give him full freedom on the neck, and
Yeah,
definitely noticed
yeah.
that.
And I gotta, you are a score nerd. You're a composer yourself. By the way, folks, that awesome new theme song that you heard for the Fanboy podcast at the start of this episode, just like the last one, was composed by this man standing across from me right now, or sitting across from me, Mr. Brett Miro. So, Mr. Composer, what did you think of Michael Giacchino's work in this film?
It is it's excellent. I'm so happy to have like not that Hans Zimmer didn't do one. I actually love the Hans Zimmer Batman like
Yeah,
theme kind of for Bruce Wayne, but just to have like an iconic melody like motif for all the
yeah,
characters, really everyone had like a little motif. I'm a big fan when they play with that. having the Ave Maria kind of thing for the
Yeah.
Riddler, which they would also then play with that motif and put it in a minor key, made it sound menacing. I'll never hear
Yeah.
that song the same way ever again. But yeah, like just, I mean, the new Batman theme is literally, it's two notes.
Yeah.
It's just da da
Dun, dun,
da da
dun,
da.
dun,
It's
dun.
two notes.
Yeah.
And wow, it is so iconic when it's on screen. Maybe I'll talk a little more in the spoiler chat
Yeah.
at the end. There's a specific moment where I thought they utilized it just so amazing, and it had such an impact. And it was a tremendous scene as well. So, but I
Yeah.
don't want to like spoil anything
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
It
Well,
really was,
look,
that movie was such a treat.
yeah. One thing that I hope happens with this theme, by the way, is what happened with Danny Elfman's theme. Because, look, it's interesting to me that to this day, Danny Elfman's Batman theme is considered to be like the Batman theme,
Yes.
right? And yet, it was only featured in 2 movies. It didn't survive to the Val Kilmer iteration
Right.
or the George Clooney. So even by the end of that particular run of Batman movies, he wasn't using that da-da-da-da-da. Like that was only for Batman and Batman Returns. What
Right.
clinched it, what sealed the deal and made that theme cross over into being the iconic Batman theme is that in the mid 90s, when they adapted and they made Batman the animated series,
Mhm.
they used that and it carried over. And that's where all of a sudden it wasn't just a theme tied to Michael Keaton, it was a theme tied to Batman in general. So with
Mhm.
that in mind, I know that they've announced a brand new animated Batman series that's on the way. That I believe Bruce Timm is working. I mean, a bunch of really amazing
Yeah.
producers are working on it, including Matt Reeves. And I feel like the connotation, the hidden thing in all of this is that this animated series may very well have a similar relationship to Matt Reeves' Batman movies as Batman the Animated Series had to the Tim Burton movies. You know, where it's not a direct adaptation by any stretch. They're very different, but there is a certain shared DNA between those two.
Sure.
You know, so I feel like it would be amazing and it would really seal the deal for Michael Giacchino's theme to now become like the new theme for Batman moving forward if it somehow makes its way into that cartoon, you know?
Right.
So I think that would be a
Well,
pretty
what
cool.
what a run he's having. If I'm not mistaken, didn't he also just do No Way Home?
Michael Giacchino did No Way Home. He did Star Wars Rogue One. So he took over for John Williams. He was the first non-John Williams
Right.
composer to do a Star Wars movie. And he also was who J.J. Abrams hired to do the Star Trek reboot.
Right.
So this guy's been like just
Yeah.
dealing with these huge IPs and putting his own stamp on them.
He's crushing
And it's
he's having
amazing.
a
It's
nice run.
amazing.
It's a
Yeah.
nice run. Good for him.
Yeah, and what's cool, what's even cooler about the Batman is this one is almost entirely. I mean, this one is entirely original. On the other ones, there were sort of he kind of had to riff with some established motifs. Like even with
Right.
Spider-Man, he did the thing where he's orchestrated the '60s Spider-Man theme. That da, da, da,
Yeah.
da, da. Like he's kind of taken stuff that was pre-existing. With Batman, he started from scratch, and it's phenomenal. It's
Yeah, and I don't know if
phenomenal.
you had read too, but actually Matt Reeves has spoken about it that he Michael I won't keep
Giacchino.
wanting to say
I say Giacchino.
I want to say Giacchino, but that sounds like a cappuccino. He
Giacchino.
actually had written the theme for Batman before there was a single frame of the film shot.
Oh wow.
So this is something I think as soon as he consulted with Matt Reeves, he was probably like had this just in his pocket, was like, one day if I do Batman, it's gonna be
Yeah.
this. Like he probably wrote it just for himself, and then he was like, I get
Yeah.
to use it now. But like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
apparently had this before even seeing the film. He just
Wow.
knew. And then Matt Reeves immediately was like, yeah, no, that's it. I didn't even
That's
shoot
it.
it yet, but that's
Yeah.
definitely the one.
It's funny because I was thinking about that too. I remember like they released the first snippet of that score, I want to say almost 2 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
it was when they first revealed the costume. Matt
Yes.
Reeves posted like a 20-second video that has like a slow close-up of Pattinson in the suit with just that playing in the background in
Yeah.
piano, and everyone lost their minds. And it's crazy to think how long we've been waiting for this freaking movie, Brett.
I know.
I'd even forgotten that it was originally supposed to come out in June of last year. And then it
Right.
got delayed to the fall and then delayed again to now to March. I mean, it has been an epic slog waiting for this thing, but at last it is here.
It was worth it.